The Texans are riding a wave of optimism, Sarge. We've seen flashes of brilliance on this offense. The challenge is now consistency. We talk about avoiding negative trends and so much more on today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Texans fans, welcome to the Locked On Texans podcast. I'm your host, John, some sports guy Hickman, credential media member and Texans football analyst. And on the other side of the screen, Texans credential media member, Brian Big Sarge Bearfield. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer on the show. You're part of the Locked On Podcast Network family, your team every day. Today, we are diving into who's coming back. The Houston Texans now have a void on that 53-man roster who's going to fill it, attacking the secondary for the Indianapolis Colts and the negative trends to avoid for improvement starting Sunday. This show is brought to you by none other than FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Sarge, we are talking Texans today. And when talking Texas, we can go up and back. We can go back and forth. Yep. But the issue has been, look, they're getting into spots where it's hard for them to get out.
Yeah.
A lot of those spots, are in the second half. So when I look at some of these negative trends for the Houston Texans to avoid, what comes to mind for you?
When I think about the negative trends, John, I think about the third and longs that the offense continues to be in, the running plays on first down. And sometimes I feel like they need to mix it up a little bit and stop being so predictable. They're being predictable on first down. They're being predictable on second down. And now you get to third and long, they automatically know what you're going to do. I also feel like a trend of the defensive coordinators being able to figure out Bobby Slowick's scheme, being able to figure out that offense very quickly with those condensed formations. And that's the one thing that's given the Houston Texans a lot of problems this season.
Yeah, just everybody kind of bunched together and not allowing for the offense to spread the opposing defenses out. I 100% agree with you. I also think one thing we need to look at is just more targets and opportunities for both Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie. I think that's a good start, right? We highlight a lot of the inconsistencies with the second half woes, and that's a huge problem. I think a lot of that is due to teams being able to take away who they know the Texans will go to with the ball, right?
Yeah.
Perfect example on the 2-point conversion, we saw a 2-man route. Right. And then the next play just wasn't necessarily a good play. But a lot of you guys have said on multiple occasions, John Mechie, he ain't it. Well, check this out. What can a player do who has games where he's been featured on run blocking duties more than pass catching opportunities in 3 of his 4 active games? He's only caught his 1 target. And when I look at Xavier Hutchinson getting more opportunities when Nico Collins has went down, and going back to Sunday's game, he was on the field for 41 snaps. He's averaged 41 snaps over the last 3 weeks. However, the increase in playing time hasn't necessarily led to more opportunities to catch the ball. So I think that's the issue. 3 catches on 6 targets for 42 yards during the 3-game stretch. Without Nico, this team has become very 3-dimensional and handcuffed. And when I say 3-dimensional, I mean run the ball to Joe Mixon or who's ever healthy and back there, or find a way to get the ball to Stephon Diggs and try to get the ball to Tank Dell. We've mentioned a lot here on this show, on the show and off the show, about the lack of tempo the offense for the Houston Texans has created and how that's been detrimental to any possible success. But I think about how easy it is for teams to just sit back and attack the offense knowing, listen, only 3 people are going to really impact us right now aside from C.J. Stroud. And 2 of those guys need C.J. Stroud, so we can just take away the left side of the field for C.J. Stroud where he hasn't necessarily gotten the ball to a lot, then we have a better chance to getting the Texans offense off the field. And so I think that's been a big problem for the Texans.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, John, but I just wanted to say that it also goes into play where as much as CJ is under pressure, he's under pressure a lot. He's having to move out of the pocket a lot. And once he gets to moving out of the pocket, he only goes to really to the people that he trusts. So he's looking for Stephon Diggs. He's looking for Tank. He's looking for Dalton Schultz. And I was very surprised that he found Xavier Hutchinson last week when they needed on that 3rd and long that they had, and he was able to find him. It looked like a Nico Collins type route, and that's where you could see
it
where
did.
Nico Collins has been very vital in helping Xavier Hutchinson become a better wide receiver and how to run better routes, and also how to get on the same page as CJ Stroud. I believe that if they allow CJ to have enough time, if they allow CJ to have enough time, I feel like players like Mechie will get more of opportunities to get some passes thrown his way. I feel like Xavier Hutchinson will get a lot more passes. I just think that the biggest issue and one of the negative trends is this offensive line, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, John. It's one of those things where it just has to be fixed.
Yeah, and also think you got to help them out, right? Like,
yes.
And we talk about spreading the offense out. Hey, listen, if you are bunched in, that allows for that defense path to success to be shorter. The path to success on passing downs is getting to the quarterback. So if they're all bunched in together, I think that's a little bit easier for opposing defenses, as opposed to spreading it out just a little bit to make those paths to success, which is CJ Stroud, a little bit longer and giving you a little bit more time to process the defense, process the pressure, and understand where the ball needs to go to. And I think a lot of that, again, we place the look and blame to Bobby Sloak. And we talk about trends, and we're going to talk about attacking the Colts secondary. Here's a trend for you. The Colts defense is tied for 27th in the league for tight end production. 7 targets per game, 6.5 receptions per game, nearly 55 yards allowed per game to tight end. Sarge, I think when you look at attacking the secondary for the Indianapolis Colts, is it safe to say that Dalton Schultz needs to be involved?
Of course. And the one way to get Dalton Schultz involved is you got to give him some of those stop routes. You got to give him some of those routes. As big as Dalton Schultz is, as big as Cade Stover is, the rookie out of Ohio State, who's, I feel like as a hybrid tight end, he should be in routes a whole lot more. But these are two big body tight ends, that you have to be that are going up against smaller cornerbacks, going up against smaller safeties. There's some bigger linebackers, but most of the times they'll have a safety on them. But you got to allow them to be able to box out, to use a basketball term. You got to allow Dalton Schultz to be able to stop, turn around, and become the biggest target he can for CJ Stroud while keeping the defender behind him. When Dalton Schultz gets big, he turns around, he's right there, and he's waiting on the ball. And he also has to catch it now, John. He also has to catch it.
He does have to catch it.
He can't have drops, but we need to see that more.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people have been very critical of Dalton Schultz, and rightfully so. But I will say this: you didn't pay him $11 million to bring him back so he can block, and he needs to get more passing opportunities. So we'll talk about attacking the Colts secondary when we come back on the other side of the Locked On Texans podcast. However, guys, Texan fans, listen up. The big showdown is Sunday. Texans versus Colts is just around the corner. You do not want to miss it. If you're still looking for tickets, forget the hassle. Download the Game Time app right now and grab your seats in just seconds. With Game Time, you'll get last-minute deals, and you'll even get an opportunity to see your seat and where you'll be sitting at with the views from your seat option. No hidden fees, no surprises, just the best prices delivered right to your phone. So don't wait. Secure your spot and feel the energy in the NRG Stadium. Head to the App Store, download Game Time, and be a part of the action when the Texans take on the Colts at home. Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And also, guys, we got to talk Prize Picks, Texan fans. The battle is heating up. Again, just talked about the Texans taking on the Colts. You know what makes the game even more exciting? Prize Picks. Prize Picks is really the simplest way to play daily fantasy sports. Just pick 2 to 6 players, predict their goal more or less than their player stat projections, and you can win up to 100 times your money. So listen, think Tank Dell will grab more than 5 catches this week, or maybe CJ Stroud throws for more than 250 yards against the Colts. It's easy to play and win big. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play when you play $5 and use code Locked On NFL. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers, as we continue to talk, maybe like a pre-show to the crossover as we talk about the Indianapolis Colts. 4-2. Joe Flacco gave them some good moments, got them back in the winning category. They are rolling with Anthony Richardson. Don't know if Jonathan Taylor will be playing, but Sarge, listeners and viewers, that's all on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, they are still the weaker run defense in the NFL. They also allow a lot of big plays, so attacking this Colts secondary, I think it allows for Houston to do one thing and one thing only: get into that rhythm that they desperately need, especially after getting punched in the mouth by the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and John, we can't look back to what happened in week one. Week one happened. We have to let it go. And what I mean by that is there were some very good plays by the Houston Texans during week one in that passing game. And what you want them to do, you want them to be able to recreate some of that magic that they had, but you also they're on a whole different playing field now, and they have to. They're basically starting from scratch, because there is no Nico Collins playing in this game. You didn't get Tank Dell the ball last week against the Packers. You got to make sure that he gets his touches, all the while getting Stephon Diggs his touches. And so everything that happened in week one, hey, let that go. Come in with a fresh, brand new offensive scheme, offensive passing scheme. Because, John, the one thing that bothered me last week with the Texans versus the Packers is that the Packers defense the week before, and I've said this on numerous occasions, the Packers defense the week before against Arizona Cardinals didn't get one sack, and they got 8 quarterback pressures. And then they all of a sudden turned into the 85 Bears against the Houston Texans on Sunday. When you look at the Indianapolis Colts defense against the Miami Dolphins on last week in their 16-10 win, they got 10 pressures and 1 sack. So you would think that, hey, look, that means that C.J. Stroud should have a lot of time to pass the ball. And if he does have that time, John, if he does have that time to attack that Indianapolis Colts secondary, he should start with picking on Jalen Jones, cornerback, who's been targeted 42 times, giving up 28 receptions for 331 yards.
It's been rough for him.
Yeah, you can also look at Julian Blackmon, the free safety. He's been targeted 11 times, gave up 11 receptions for 243 yards. We're looking at a defense that has by far two of the best linebackers in the game in Zaire Franklin and Speed. And so they play the game like they play the game on another level, but that secondary does not. And when that secondary doesn't play, that puts a lot of pressure on those linebackers. John, let me give you some numbers real quick. They are allowing 7.3 yards per attempt, which is 14th in the league. 7.1 yards allowed, which is 24th. They pressure rate on the quarterback is 21.9%, which is 16th in the league. Defensive third down conversion rate, where it seems like the Houston Texans have thrived this year because they have been in so many third and longs. They 44.5%, which is 25th in the league, and their defensive red zone success rate is 63.6%, which is ranks 25th in the league. So, John, there shouldn't be any excuses this week for the Houston Texans, and I know the Indianapolis Colts are a rival. I know that, and
it'll be a tough game.
Anytime the Texans play the Colts, the Jags, or the Titans, somebody within their division, it gets rough sometimes because they know each other. But looking at these numbers, John, and looking at what C.J. Stroud should be able to do, a bounce-back game, especially after only having 86 yards, I think he's going to be hungry.
He's going to be hungry, absolutely. And I think another player who's going to be hungry, Tank Dell.
Yes.
Tank Dell. Listen, the fans are not necessarily the biggest of fans right now of Tank Dell. And to that, I would say, let's slow it down a little bit, right? I think he is right now a victim of the arrival of Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
And I also think he is a victim of a more condensed offense that really hasn't allowed for him to blossom and grow through 7 games. And I think we really do need to look at that. The drop TD hurts. You score that touchdown there, you're looking at 7 instead of 3. That's a totally different game, and I understand it. But for this Texans offense to attack that Colts secondary, I think it's all about finding them in a place where they can beat those zones and get some yak yards.
Yeah.
We look for the Texans offense to run the ball well, right? And when Joe Mixon has played in 3 full games, he's ran for over 100 yards. But then we look for the big play, and the Colts do run a lot of cover 3.
Yeah.
So you look at the cover 3 and, man, you know what? Maybe we can get a couple of big plays. But I do think right now, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, once again, John Metchie, once again, Stephen, all of those guys, they need to find a way to say, you know what? How can we get you in space to allow you to operate in that space and pick up some extra yards by getting some of those yards after catch? Yeah. That hasn't necessarily been, I think, a part of this offense as much as I thought it was going to be. When I look at the underneath and over the top ability of Tank Dell, the underneath and the 15 to 20 yard ability of Stephon Diggs, and then we know the over the top help that Nico Collins gives, but he's out. So they got to find a way to utilize those two guys underneath and over the top. And then just, hey, listen, Dalton Schultz right in the scene, Cade Stover right out of the backfield on some of those flats. We got to get you the ball so where you can get those legs going and pick up some of those first downs through the air.
Well, John, I'm going to say this. One of the things I am tired of doing, I'm tired of talking about, man, they should get the ball to Stephon Diggs. Man, they should get the ball to Tank Dell. Man, they should get the ball to Dalton Schultz. Man, they should get the ball to this person. Man, they should get the ball to that person. I'm tired of talking about it, and I'm ready to see it. I'm ready to see it. At some point, Bobby has to realize that what I do have on the field, I have to be able to take advantage of my mismatches. And it just hasn't been happening. And so, you know, it's like we come every week and say, man, you got to get Tank the ball. You got to get Stephon the ball. You got to get Dalton the ball. I'm really tired of hearing myself repeat the exact same thing. And now I'm ready for Bobby. And this can be a bounce back game for them going up against one of the weaker secondaries in the league. And so, like, it's time to stop talking. It's time to start doing.
I would 100% agree with you because I felt like everything I just said, I've said before. And if I said it before, I know I said it before that. So it does get to a point where it's just kind of like, sorry, stop me if I'm wrong, but it's like, hey, man, just get it together. Yes. All offseason, what did we hear? 5-headed monster. We got all this special talent. And it seems like each week, one guy is excluded. 2 guys are an afterthought. 3 guys are limited to blocking. This is what, and this was your question, so I want to play it for the listeners again and viewers again. This is what Bobby Slowick had to say about C.J. Stroud and getting the offense going.
Yeah, I think he's always been all in on it. You know, he understands how valuable that is as a quarterback to just be able to stay on the field, get to third and manageables, and that's really what it's about. You know, it's my job to get number one as open as possible all the time, but, you know, not always going to do that. And when I'm wrong, how right can you make me? Are we wrong? Like, man, I just called a play and we lost 4 yards, or can I call a play and be wrong and we gained 6? You know, and that started towards the end of camp. That happened a lot. You know, he really is bought into staying on rhythm, getting the ball out on time, and you know, really getting it to our playmakers' hands as often as possible. And that's not easy to do. Like, you have to be very deliberate in how you approach every day to go put that into action, and it definitely has grown.
Sarge, for me, that screams there's going to be moments, and there has been moments. That's an old clip where I'm not going to help this team out on the sideline. I know I may cause something and we may lose yards, or we may not be a positive play. It could be a negative trend that they need to avoid. But I have the faith in my quarterback to get it done. And I'll say this, you need your quarterback to be superhuman in the playoffs. In the regular season, you want your offensive staff and coordinators to make sure that your quarterback's job is as easy as possible. And Bobby has really failed CJ in this offense in that area. So Sunday is one of those games where you're absolutely right. Hey, no, you got to put your quarterback in a good situation. He shouldn't have to bail you out of a bad call. Yeah. He shouldn't have to bail you out of bad sequencing of plays. And you know what? We need to see that tempo. Knock the defense in the mouth first. Knock them on their heels first. before they can get set, and do that for 4 quarters. Move with some tempo about yourself and allow this offense to really bring the fight to the opposing defense. I think Sunday game against the Colts is a perfect opportunity for that.
I believe the exact same thing, John. And what I would like to see more of, like you said, is the up tempo style. And I would also like to see CJ be able to audible just a little bit more. I want to see CJ. I can't remember the last time I've seen CJ audible on a consistent basis. And so, in order to be able to audible like that, I feel like Bobby has to take a step back and say, well, CJ, what are you seeing? And if you see something that I'm not seeing, then you audible into another play. You audible into, and look, I know that you call in 2 plays in the huddle, but there may be a third play that may work, and everybody should know it. So go into that other play. If you step to the line and you see something, because John, there's plenty of times that I feel like, hey man, a screen right here will slow this defense down from attacking so much. They don't run screen plays a lot, and even when they do, a lot of them aren't successful. So there's got to be some more screens run. There's got to be some play action when Joe Mixon is going the way that he's going, and that play action will also lead into screens. And so like I said, I just want to see CJ be able to audible more and have more control. It's time, John. We've seen what he is. We've seen what he can do. It's time to just, pull back a little bit and say, CJ, do what you do.
On the other side of the break, when we come back, who's going to get their last roster spot, and will that person help out this team in an area that they absolutely need assistance in? This is also, Texan fans, a great opportunity to let you guys in on a big secret, and that's getting in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. This Sunday, again, the Texans take on the Colts, and FanDuel has all of the odds, props, and bets you need to make the game even more exciting. Here's what we're looking at. The Texans are a +2.5 underdogs against the Colts. Will CJ Stroud and the boys cover the spread? Feeling a little bit bold? Bet on Tank Dell to score in any time touchdown at +170. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. If you are not watching, Sarge is smiling right now. If you're listening, he's smiling. But if you're watching, you see the smile. And I do think the Houston Texans have something to smile about right now. They have an additional roster spot. So not 53 right now. It's sitting at 52. Sarge, for me, that screams either Christian Harris is coming back or they're getting Jeff Okudah back. And for me right now, I think it's more important to get Jeff Okudah back in their cornerback room.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's got to be. They need help, and this is nothing against D'Angelo Ross, but we need to see what Jeff Okudah can actually do. He's one of the guys that I looked at in the training camp and said, I think that he just needs another opportunity. He just needs another chance. Give him another chance. There was a lot of times I've seen D'Amico go over and talk with him a lot and just let him know, hey man, you're welcome here. One thing that D'Amico said during training camp also is that when these guys come from other teams, they have a clean slate with me. He said, I don't trust other people's eyes. I only trust my own eyes. And so when they get here, it's a clean slate. They can build their own. And unfortunately for Jeff Okudah, he has been one of those players that, just can't seem to get healthy. And if he was healthy, he would be getting a lot of playing time right now and be able to. And I think that with his skill set, and the way that he is able to play, it fits right into the style of defense that D'Amico and defense coordinator Matt Burke calls. And so, I'm hoping that it is Jeff Okudah. But John, let me give you a little inside information right quick. It could be a Kamar Lassiter. It could be a Kamar Lassiter sighting against the Indianapolis Colts. There could be a Robert Woods sighting. And if that's one thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about, if Robert Woods comes back, that's exactly what I feel like the Texans need. They don't have that. And let me take that back. I feel like Stephon Diggs is a good possession wide receiver. He's not a possession wide receiver like Robert Woods. Robert Woods is that safety net And so getting him back would help that offense. Getting Kamari Lassiter back would be a big boost for that defense.
And I've heard that all offseason, what Robert Woods brings to this team on their side of the ball. And you know what? My pushback to that is there not another receiver on this roster that can fill that void and roll and do it better? We've seen a lot of Robert Woods in special teams, and I like Tank Dell returning punts. If you want to find a way to get him involved, he did it at U of H. That's a good way to get him involved and get him going, right? And we saw Cade Stover, the rookie, kind of block his own man from getting upfield, so he'll learn from that. But yeah, I really look at Robert Woods as a guy that there's got to be another receiver on this team that can do what he does. He blocks well, and when he does get that opportunity, it's for a safety net type of play. We've seen Xavier Hutchinson do both of those.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us may be higher on X right now than John Mechie. That's okay. He's gotten opportunities. Again, 3 catches for 42 yards. That's good. But they got to find a way to utilize those young guys. Because moving forward, what can Robert Woods really give you in some of those tighter games? If we go based off last year, not much. If we go off what we've seen from him this year, not much. So utilize the youth a little bit. And to your Kamari Lassiter point and Jeff Okudah point, just looking at the Houston Texans cornerback room, we know that Derek Stingley, he's played in over 90% of the snaps. Kamari Lassiter, over 70% of the snaps. After that, because of the injury to Lassiter, D'Angelo Ross sitting at right under 30%. Kadar Homan, 2.5. Miles Bryant, 2.6. So they haven't got guys out there that I feel like they can absolutely trust. And I think Jeff Okudah is that guy, which is why I really believe they need him back out on that field.
And John, if I could push back a little bit on that Robert Woods point, yes, I would love to see X get, Xavier Hutchinson get more playing time. I would love to see him get involved more in the passing game. I would love to see John Mechie get involved more in the passing game. And I don't understand why they can't just go back and look at some of his film at Alabama and say, well, what was working with you and Bryce Young? Because you have a quarterback in CJ Stroud who could do, the exact same things or even more than Bryce Young. Go back and look at some of those things before Mechie got hurt. And he does need, so yes, Xavier Hutchinson, yes, Mechie. But when you look at Robert Woods, we're talking about a veteran who knows where to be at all times. I mean, there was times last season when he was healthy, he was one of those players, him and Noah Brown, that would be that veteran type wide receiver for CJ. And when you're looking at a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, he knows how to go exactly to the sticks, get right where he needs to be, and he knows how to sit down in those spots. Or he knows how, when CJ gets to scrambling, he knows how to scramble with him. He brings that veteran presence. He brings that veteran wide receiver presence that knows the ins and outs, the intricacies and the nuances of playing that positions, something that Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie is still learning.
We'll talk about a little bit more of the Houston Texans whenever they make that decision, who they're going to fill that void with for that last spot throughout the week. We got the crossover show tomorrow, so make sure you check that out. Locked On Texans, Locked On Colts. That's always fun. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Sarge.
You can follow me at the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with a Z at the end.
Thank you guys for watching today, listening as well. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texan podcast if you're watching on YouTube. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.